All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Mohannad. I'm a little bit about me. I'm a PhD candidate in computer science, and I've been a VT-GrATE fellow since spring, which is a great honor. I've also been, before PhD, I was in the industry for a while, a software engineer. I've also been TA for a while, but till this day, my most interesting and exciting experience that I ever had in my life, for me, is being an instructor of record for a senior class for bachelor degree last in spring. And I want to spend the next hour sharing with you some of the scenarios I went through, and which were not anticipated, and have a discussion about them. It's going to be more of a discussion than just me talking. So I hope you like that. So how was being an instructor? It was a lot of fun for me. I've always wanted to be a professor, so for me, like it exceeded expectations. But it was also a lot of work, if you really care. I mean, like Kwame said before, like sometimes you're teaching 6 classes and you just don't have the time to prepare. But if you have the time and really care, you can put a lot of work into it, but it's totally worth it. But also, most importantly, it's a lot of unanticipated challenges that need to be worked out, which is what I am focusing on today. So I'm going to bring up a couple of scenarios that I went through, and I'll explain what the scenario is, and then we'll have a discussion about it. Then I'll share what I did, and which is not necessarily the best thing, but it was my attempt to resolve the situation. But I'll learn from you, and maybe you'll learn from me, and I don't know. Let's see. It's going to be interesting. And people online, please feel free to speak, because I might not notice the chat sometimes. So just feel free to pitch in. All right. Let's start with the big one. Freedom of speech or safe space. Okay. So one day I had part of my syllabus is Canvas discussion. Okay. So people have every month to post one comment, to put one post about something related to machine learning and AI. It's open-ended. It can be as technical as it gets, or it can be more philosophical. It's open to that. And people have to comment on others' posts. So it's more of a dialogue, more of a conversation. Okay? So one person posted this, and I don't know if you can read it. I'll try to read it for you too, but I'll try to summarize it. So one person posts about machine learning and facial recognition technology and how it's controversial. Okay, and that person brings up an example about how the Uyghur genocide is going on in China, and how China is using this technology to identify and persecute people, and how China is a police state, how they're carrying out genocide for Muslims, etc. Okay? Cool. In a sense, this is related to AI. A lot of people brought up AI and social topics, so that's fair game. Except after this post, another person posted this. They're comparing how the West has double standards, where the war that the US conducted after 9/11 is not considered genocide, even though thousands of people have died, whereas what China does is considered genocide. And then they continue on talking about how the West has nothing good to say about China. China always suffers from anti-China propaganda. Okay. So I am in this circumstance, in this situation where someone brings up a topic that is partially political, and then it derails into a political topic where some people feel, oh, this class is harboring anti-China sentiment, and some people feel like they want to bring up a social justice topic that is related to the class subject. I mean, it's not completely unrelated, right? So two students are like feeling like, you know, sharing themselves, but they're also not feeling comfortable with the other person. Okay. So I'm gonna stop here, and then I would like to hear from you. What do you think about this situation? If you were the instructor of this class, what would you do? It doesn't have to be a solution, you know, it just happened. Like, I'm not saying you're an expert, but you're a teacher, and like Kwame said, you don't have, no one trained you to be a teacher usually, right? You're just in the spot, and you have to deal with this situation. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have the answer, and this is a great situation. I'm not going to, I'll just say what I'm going to say. I think sometimes, although you were the full instructor of everything, I think sometimes we say, oh, well, we'll have the professor do the lecture and we'll have the less experienced people lead the discussion and think that that's somehow the easier part. But this is really making me think that's probably the part where you need the most training. It's one thing to just give the facts and the definitions or other things, but this is the hardest part.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with it. Like, getting the technical parts right of teaching, yeah, it needs work and hard work and a lot of learning, but it's more streamlined, I would say. Like, you know, you do it as you are doing PhD and all of that. But like the social part, no one really prepares you for this. Any other thoughts? I'm not asking you for the right answer, right? There is no right answer. I'm just asking your thoughts.
I think.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think there's a saying that my advisor usually uses that is something like you can attack the idea without attacking the person.
Okay.
So I feel like, as much as I don't know if how comfortable people would be with conversations like this, I would most definitely draw a line when somebody starts attacking a person. And I didn't read the whole thing, but at no point did I feel like anybody was attacking another person.
Right. There was no personal attack. There was no personal attack. There was just a heated political sentiment, but there was no attacking at the person. Yeah.
So I personally think I would let it be. Okay. I mean, if they want to discuss stuff like that. Okay. At some point, I also would say maybe, you know, like outside of class time, if it diverges too much. But, you know, as long as there's no personal attack, I do think that, especially, you know, me being in engineering, being computer science, it's things that you have to talk about. Like, those are real repercussions and real context in which our work is being put to use. So I find some value in the conversation, as long as nobody's, you know, personally attacking anybody else.
Okay, that's fair. I can agree with that.
I think first it would take me a big amount of time to read through it and educate myself what they're talking about, because not first day I know the topic that they are talking about. And I also, like, not knowing the topic, I might interpret it differently. So I need first to understand what's going on. And second, I probably would either reach out to a colleague that I know has some teaching experience. For example, we had a fellow that graduated, now moves on and is teaching, that was teaching a course on conflict in the Middle East. And he was constantly dealing with hot topics. So probably that would have been my primary sort of like, how can I handle this conversation? I know he shared some tips about, like, probably, like, you know, directing the conversation because you are the leader in the class, and maybe like drawing the line where it like goes. But still, how do you navigate that space? I never experienced it, but that's two things that I would have done. Educate myself and reach out to people that I know deal with discussions that are on hot topics that people have opposite opinions, and so yeah, that's what I would have done.
Okay, so referring to other people's, more experienced people, let's say, that's also very helpful. Okay, I think we all agree it's a difficult situation. I don't think any of us has like an exact solution, but like Linda said, you can refer to outsider. Sorry, your name? I forgot.
Karen?
Karen said like, you know, we need these conversations, that maybe there's a line somewhere, you know. So, okay, I'll share what I did and then we can have a conversation about it. But actually, before I share what I did, I'll maybe try to summarize my thoughts about the thing. So you have really two options, maybe a spectrum of options, but the two extremes is you censor, right? But for me, like censorship, I mean, yeah, you can censor, right? Because you know, free speech can be divisive, like we just saw, right? More precisely, like a political opinion will most likely offend someone no matter what, right? So if you are gonna let your students express themselves, I think sooner or later you will get into a situation where someone will be offended, even if there was no intention from anyone to offend anyone. You know, we all come from different backgrounds, different things we believe in, different levels of tolerance. So you will get in these situations. So that's on one hand. But on the other hand, what if we allow free speech, right? So if we allow free speech, I think free speech is necessary for a real dialogue. So that's a strength, right? And also I think suppressing someone from expressing what they want will make them feel like unwelcome or alienated. And it's not really about that feeling per se. I mean, I don't want anyone to feel unwelcome or alienated, but also in terms of pedagogy that affects their interest in the class itself, right? Or in the subject. So this feeling of alienation, even though it was about politics maybe, it will seep through into the subject of machine learning, right? Because we're humans, we're not robots, right? So if I'm not interested, if the instructor does anything that makes me averse to this social interaction, I'll maybe lose interest in the entire class, not just that specific conversation, right? So you can see, like, you want freedom of speech, you want people to feel comfortable, but at the same time, like I said here, when people feel comfortable, they might make other people uncomfortable, sorry, right? So there's like a conflict of values here. So, I mean, again, I'm not, like Wami said, I'm not I don't call my expert on anything, really. I'm just trying my best. So I think I kind of agree with what Karen said, and that's what I went with. It's like, you know, I'm always, I want to promote freedom of speech. I'm like, yeah, if you want to bring up controversial discussions, please bring them up as long as you're respectful. But there is a line to be drawn where, like, okay, are we talking about machine learning and politics, or are we talking about politics? Right? Once the discussion disengages from the roots of machine learning, then this is not a relevant conversation. And one, like I said, this will be divisive, which I would rather stay away from because I don't want people to feel uncomfortable in the class. But second of all, if you look at that Canvas discussion, and like I just gave you a snippet of what people wrote, the discussion was very long. Like there was a lot of back and forth, and that really distracts students. Like if you're trying to read this Canvas discussion and like comment on other people's comments, like if people are going to write in this way, it will be really hard to sift through the discussions and feel like which one is relevant to class and which one is not, right? So you have to draw a line somewhere, but for me, you have to draw it in a way that it doesn't make people feel censored for their opinion. You have to make it a little bit more, like the censorship has to be more objective rather than oh, you're not allowed to say this or you're not allowed to say that. It's more like, hey, I respect your opinion, but we need to keep this relevant to the class. So this way you don't offend them, you don't make them feel alienated, because it's not personal, it's not about their opinion. So that's how I handle this. And I mean, after that, I think the next discussions were peaceful. There were people kept posting like AI and social issues, which what I wanted. They did not refrain from it, but I think they got the idea that hey, we need to keep it relevant to the class. So, which was great. That's exactly the balance I got. Cool.
Well done.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you did a good job.
Tried my best. All right. Any thoughts on that before I move on to the next one?
I'll just say very quickly, it's a moment in a class, especially if it's early in the class, like in the first half of the class.
Yeah.
And you'll survive regardless, but if people feel you handle it well, it goes forward healthy. If for some reason it just doesn't turn out and you handle it well, and that can happen to any of us.
Sure.
Then suddenly it's hard to get people to be as engaged anymore. But yeah, work.
Yeah, I think generally you need to be, none of us can always do the right thing, but you need to be decisive about it. Not, because if you're not, it will not go well, right? You have to make a decision, go through with it. You can learn from your mistake later, but you have to go through it. Cool. Next chapter, group assignment free writing. Okay. I think we're all familiar with this. Well, now as TAs and before as undergrads, or maybe as grad students. Okay, so this is a capstone class, so the project itself constitutes 75% of the grade. Okay, and the project is a group project. It's like 3 to 4 people each group. There are milestones where people bring, one milestone is the proposal, the second milestone is like like a midterm kind of thing. It's like show me your progress. Next milestone is show me the final results, stuff like that. So there are milestones just for people to keep track of their work. Okay, but given the experience we've all had, that in a group assignment, sometimes you have 1 or 2 people doing all the work and the other people not doing the work, which I think is not fair. So for me, trying to preserve the fairness in class, I decided to, about like halfway through the class, to send a Google form asking them that this is, I'm not going to share this with the rest of your group. Just tell me how well your group assignment is going, and if there's a problem, describe the problem for me. What is going on? Why do you feel there is unfairness? Okay. So I had a class of 18 people, only 1 person replied, saying, I'll try to summarize this for you. They were saying that him and his teammates decided to split up the work in such and such way, and then they decided, okay, by this day on Saturday, you will give me this part, and I'll give you this part, and then we can put it together. But come Saturday, there were so many issues with one of the parts that he was supposed to execute. Like the code was not running, it was just copy pasted from somewhere online, and the people didn't even try to run it. And even after he fixed it, there was so many cases that the code did not handle, it was a nightmare. For someone who does software engineering, it was a nightmare. Okay? So this person is feeling frustrated, he feels like he has to, not only does his part, but also fix other people's part. and the environment is toxic. Okay, cool. So you are in my situation. How I actually am very interested in hearing you as TAs or professors. Like, I'm sure you have come up with it. You have come across this situation before in your life, and I'm sure you've thought about, like, what would you do if you were an instructor? So I'm really curious to hear from you, like, what would you? Who's going? Your name?
And
Annie.
I mean, the plagiarism aspect is it's a big issue. Right, so I don't know what to do, but would it be worth even setting a reminder to mention like how plagiarism is start dealing with small parts of this issue?
Right. You're completely like plagiarism is like, according to the syllabus, is punishable.
Right.
But I think maybe I did not clarify the context here. Is like in software engineering, there's a lot of time where you copy codes and you can reference it. You can say like, I copied this code from here. But the issue here with the copying was not the plagiarism per se, but it was like they just copy and pasted it. They didn't even try, right? Like usually when you copy a code, you have to make sure it works with the existing code. For them, they just put it there. It's like, oh, I'm done.
And they didn't change anything.
Yeah, they didn't even check it. They didn't do anything. Oh, yeah, I did my job. You know, so that was really the core issue.
So these were two student groups.
No, this is
but it's a pair, right? It's two students.
no, it's 4 students. So one student did the
So it's
job,
one student
and the other 3. I don't know if it was 3 or 4 people. Definitely more than 2.
Okay.
Let's say there were 3. The other 2 were supposed to do a task, and they did.
Okay, so it's a little different. 3. It's better that it's more than 2 because if you address the student directly, and if it's only 2, well, they know who the other one is coming from. So,
which is a great point.
Yeah.
Because I also don't. If I make this about, hey, that person told me you didn't do your work,
yeah.
then this becomes about he said, she said, oh, you're ratting on me. I feel like this becomes just more like a personal issue. Doesn't really solve the problem. I don't know. That's how I feel. I don't know if you have a different opinion.
No, I think I agree. I mean, my only thought sometimes I like to let these things go, but I'm not sure about this case because it sounds like they had a lot to say. But there's always going to be someone who does more work, and in real life you're going to be working in teams, and if it's really important to you to do well, sometimes you have to do more. So sometimes I like to let these go, but this seems long enough and significant enough that you can't just kind of say work it out in the group.
Right.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying, that things might work themselves out, but also I felt me as an instructor, someone reported this to me.
yeah,
I have a responsibility to add on.
yeah.
Because if I tell them, sort it out
Yeah.
on your own, what am I telling the student? Like, I don't care, right? It's your problem, which is not really what I want, right?
Yeah, so I don't know how long along the semester this happened. That's something that like we've done like a lot, is just like use Academy. As soon as we put like the students into their teams, maybe like now and then they'll like fill out those Academy like links. And so early on we kind of have a bit of an idea as to like which teams appear like a little bit problematic. So we can kind of already see like from an earlier on the semester that okay, like these 2 students in the team don't really get along. So like if the issue kind of keeps progressing, then what we did was just like the instructor would just kind of have like a meeting with the entire group, not just like the 2 individuals that were concerned, but just like to hear like everyone's opinion. And so I feel like I wouldn't want to leave it because if it's such a big issue, like I feel like the instructor should do something about it. But I think like in the past, because of using Academy, we can see that okay, there could be a problem that arises with this team. So So let's just like talk to the team before it gets like too bad.
Okay, so you're proposing hold a meeting with this team and, you know, follow up with them, right? Yeah, I think that I can get behind this idea, yeah. This way you wouldn't out anyone specifically, and, you know, you will try to unblock the issue. Yeah, I didn't do that exactly, but I did something similar, so.
Can I,
Along with your name, but like,
So
said, I mean, you could frame it as like, hey, I want to check up on your progress
Right.
and meet with the team, but then try to address those specific, can you show me your code? Let's see it working, you know, something like that. And frame it as a meeting with everybody, but then maybe you can find these issues and then discuss with the whole team about it.
Okay, yeah, I think I get behind this idea, yeah, like it has to be about the team, not outing certain people.
can I have some input here?
Sorry?
Can I add in what I think?
Yeah, sure.
So I was in a course, kernel programming course, and I think what they used is good for group assignments or group projects. So what they did is, you know, typically not all people end up contributing the same amount of time or work to in a group setting. So they say, okay, we know that even if one person ends up doing all the work, all the other people in the group should know how to do the work when you submit it. You should learn it from the person who did the work. And then there comes the time when we submit the work, they will ask us questions. People who don't know how to answer questions about what they submitted, then they know that they didn't do the amount of work. I think this can be applied to the situation you had, and can show the students that did less work, or make them understand how they end up like becoming short in their submission.
Thank you, Hadiga. I like the philosophy of the idea you said. You know, if you know how to do it, then, you know, that means you. What you're saying basically is like, you have to prove that you know how to do it, even if you didn't, right? Which is great, but I have two questions about that. First of all, even if you know how to do it, is that fair to the person who did the work, right? Because that person might have spent 10 hours figuring out this issue. And then when they reveal the problem to their teammates, it might just take them 15 minutes, right? So even though their teammates now know, doesn't really mean they put the same amount of effort. And the second thing is, maybe this works better in other fields, but in software engineering, I think it's really hard especially in machine learning, like coding. It's really hard sometimes to learn something just by looking at it. There were so many times I personally looked at other people's code and I'm like, oh yeah, I get this, it's so easy. And then when later I tried to reproduce that, I'm like, I really don't get this. Like, I thought I get this, but I don't. So I think there is a value in making people do the work, not just understand in theory how to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, maybe this is more special to my field. Maybe in other fields where it's more theoretical, that would work. But for coding, I think at least, I mean, there are always special cases for different domains, right? I can't say like whatever solution I choose for here, I can prescribe for every other case, right? But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a very interesting way, and it can definitely be applied in certain circumstances. But I don't think it would have been applicable in my class. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, so I'll share what I did, and it might be a little, I don't want to say controversial, but you might not like it. And so let's see. It has a little bit of what Sid suggested, that meet with the students, but not exactly. So what I did is this. So I waited till after this work, they had to come to class and do a presentation and present their progress, right? So I didn't follow up on it immediately. I waited till they came to the class and showed me what they did as a group, okay? So then once I graded their class, I usually put comments on their assignment and campus, and I said, as the feedback I gave in the presentation deliverable, I was expecting more progress by the end of the midterm milestone. So I made it clear to them that I was expecting them to do more work, right? Okay. And also and maybe this is a detail I failed to mention to you, that I told them every time they make a submission, they have to tell me who did the work. Okay. And I told them, I looked at the appendix where you tell me who did the work, and I can see if there is one person that is doing a lot more than another, and that's probably why you did not make as much progress as anticipated, right? So I told them, usually group projects grades is one grade for all, but I told them since this time it was not that the contribution was not balanced, I assigned different grades for different people. So if we stop here, I mean, this is not the end of my feedback. If we stop here, what do you think? Do you think this is the best way to handle this?
That's probably how I would have handled it.
Okay.
Because knowing who did what work is that's a great way of being like, okay, you want to say you get the same grade, well, where's the work?
Right.
This is something that when I teach lab classes in chemistry, and like I can physically see when there's one person doing more work, and I'll go up to them and be like, hey, can you show me that you know how to do this? And then when they don't know how to do it, I'm like, maybe you should try getting involved more. Like, hey, maybe you can show this person how to do it, and try and have it be more of a teaching, moment for that like group member or that group or whatnot, or be like, hey, if you don't know how to do it, like I'll show you how to do it. It's no big deal. But definitely having like that check of like, you did this thing, like they can't come back and be like, oh, I actually did all this work on the sideline, I just didn't write it down. But like, no, like you had an obligation, you write down what you did, and based on what I'm looking at, you don't deserve the same grade. And I feel like that's a decent thing to say, because a student can't come back and be like, oh, but no, like that, those were the rules that we set out at the beginning of the class period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I think if we're talking about, is this fair? Yes, it is fair, because they did not make enough progress, and obviously some people did not put in the work, so it is fair not to give them, right? Absolutely right. I completely agree with you. Any other?
I just had a question. So they knew from before that it's not necessary that every student will get the same grade in the group.
No, in the syllabus I said, generally speaking, if people put more or less the same amount of work, like it doesn't have to be like exactly like, 25%, 25%, like something between, 20, 27%, something like that, then that's fair enough. But if it gets down to like, someone did 5% and someone did 50%, then I said in the syllabus, you will not get the same.
Okay.
So this was clarified from the beginning of the class. Yes. Okay, so, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna add, and I wonder if that's where you're going. I like the approach. Also, especially since this is, as I read, a midterm milestone, I would allow them to work towards, fixing the grade. Like at least for this milestone, like, okay, you messed up, but this should just be a warning that tells you, hey, put in the work so that we can fix this towards the end.
Right, exactly. So that's actually where I wanted to bring this back. Basically what I did is very fair, but for me, when I think about this, yes, I want to be fair, I definitely want to be fair, but also I want the student to be motivated to do the work. I don't want them to be like, I messed up, I didn't put in the wrong, I didn't put in the work, and it's all over now. So I know some people were like, okay, not get your grade, good luck in the next milestone, forget about this milestone, right? You can do that, it's fair, I'm not saying it's not fair, but does it incentivize people to actually learn? Because that's, for me, that's what the classroom is about. It's about, I want them to be interested in learning this material. I don't want them to be interested in the grade per se, okay? So what I said in the rest of the feedback is like, this grade is tentative. If by the end of the semester I see a significant improvement in the collaboration and completing all tasks adequately, and a more fair distribution of the work, I will go back and adjust this grade. So this grade is tentative for now. So I am giving you a lower grade. You can fix it. I'm going to give you another opportunity to fix it. You have another milestone coming up. So you worked less in this milestone. If you show me more work in the next milestone relative to the other peer, okay, I'll adjust it. And next, I think Sid suggested this. I said I would happily stop some time during my office hours. We can work out any problems you have. And this is not, I spelled this out again. This is not meant to be a punishment, but rather an incentive for them to fix the grade. This is just a placeholder to tell them that you need to put more work. It's not me like, I'm punishing you, and you should go and feel bad, and there's nothing you can do. Right? At least that's my philosophy. So yeah, and there was a happy ending in this story. So the students did make up for the missed work in the next submission, and I did adjust it. And I think they all did fairly well. Cool. Any comment on this scenario before we move to the next? Thank you, Juan. Thank you. Yeah.
I did like
Was it
that,
Annie?
yeah, I liked how in the end you did say something about, hey, if you have something personal happening,
Right.
you're welcome to come to, because that kind of feels inclusive, that you just don't know what's happening in their life, I don't know, right?
Yeah, that's true. I had in my class people coming, like a person coming to me, she's like, hey, I've been having mental health issues and, you know, going to doctor, and can I get a couple of days extra for this? So, yeah, sure. As long as they communicate, that's fine, yeah. And I do try to put in the syllabus this as well in the beginning of the class. Have any personal circumstances, come talk to me, we can figure out a way to like, make this more easy. Okay, cool. All right, so moral of the story, for me, I feel, especially, I don't know if any of you took Professor Morsi's class, the pedagogy class. It was a big discussion about grading, should we grade, should we not grade? And I think there's a lot of sentiment lately that grades are bad. And I don't know if I certainly agree with that, because I think grades serve a purpose of incentivizing people. I think it's just the way you use them. Sometimes you use the grade as a punishment, and that's probably not going to incentivize people. But if you use the grade to tell people that, hey, you can get more grades if you do more work. So it's not about, hey, this is the grade you're getting, don't discuss this with me. But more like, this is the grade you're getting, but I am giving you other opportunities to make up for it. You can still get the grade you want if you put the work. It's not like, okay, you did this homework, you didn't get good grade, bye-bye. Like, good luck with the next one. See, it's more about the positive outlook for the future, for the student. You have to give the student hope. If the student doesn't have hope, they don't have a reason to learn it, right? Yeah. So yeah, always give hope to this. I have seen like most students, even if they start like tumbling in the beginning, when they see there is hope and that you appreciate their hard work, they will put more in. That's my experience in this class. All right, I think this is my last scenario. What if student puts the effort but gets the wrong answer? Okay. I think we've also been there for all of us. So in a class assignment, I had this student, she clearly put in a lot of work in that assignment, like beyond the average person. But she did not get the full points because she still like, either the numbers were wrong or she made the wrong conclusions. So she did try. She did try to like top, I think she was top 5% of the class in terms of the quality of the assignment, in terms of like the experiments she ran, you know, the way she wrote the results, the way she discussed the results. But for one reason or other, there was a bug in the code, or she didn't notice something, she didn't get the right answer. Okay. So then she came to me and she was like, hey, can you be more generous with me, the grade, since I put more effort? Especially that I actually commented in her assignment saying, you really did a great work. Like I did try to give her positive feedback saying, you did a great work. But I think she was disheartened because like, oh, I did great work, but I got 4 out of 6. So like, but what use is, how is this good for me? Like you're telling me I'm good, but I don't get it. Like she was definitely not happy. So if you have faced this case, how would you?
I love being generous with grades.
Okay.
Not from the get-go.
Okay.
I like when students come to me and tell me, hey, I think I deserve more. Especially because I have seen it when I grade and they tell me like, hey, you know, like, I think I had a mistake here, but especially from engineering work, because before you give them the answers back, if they can tell me, even if it's just spoken, right, where their mistake was, or if they can rationalize like where they went wrong or how they would do it right, maybe I wouldn't give, you know, perfect score, but in this case, like, you know, bump it up to a 5 out of 6. If they can tell me where the mistake is or how they would fix it, like it already makes me feel like, okay, I know you can put in the work, there was a mistake, but you are not afraid to tell me that you made a mistake where the mistake was, I would do it. But also like, I love giving back points.
But you said you wouldn't give the whole.
Yes,
You would just give them a little bit
yes,
for their,
yes.
oh, cool. That's fine. I think I do the same generally, like for each question, if they, I see they did the work, but didn't get the answer, maybe I'll give half the point for that question. But I think that student still, you know, because she went above and beyond. She wanted more. And you know, in undergrad, for them, a grade is really important, not like us as graduate students. So for her, it's like, she really wanted an A, right? But I'm like, I mean, before I say what I thought, any other? Yeah.
I think I would have suggested to the student like, hey, like, let's sit down during office hours and like, let's look through this and then let's talk about like where you might have gotten an error here. Let's like learn further about it. Because like a lot of my students want to come to me and be like, hey, like I got this thing wrong. Like, I don't know where I got like, I don't know where the error is, or like, you know, whatever. Or it's like just a very obvious mistake. And so in those moments, I feel like it's important to be like, hey, you made this obvious mistake. Like, let's try not make this, you know, again in the future type deal. So that's probably what I would have done. But I feel like I'm very trying to give points back, but I don't think I would have given them full points back for it. But like, that's probably what I would have done, been like, hey, let's just sit down and talk about this so that you don't make these errors again. And that way it's more of like a, let's figure out where the errors are, if it's something more consistent that you don't realize is happening. Because for me, and what I teach, like, it's a lot of very like building upon, like, it's very basic math, but like it's math that they haven't used in a long time, or like something like that, where like that error is gonna come back to bite you every single time if you don't know what the error is.
I think that's really the important part. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're all nice people here, and we wanna, some place in our heart, we wanna be lenient. But like you said, this is also about learning. Like, is me giving her the grade gonna help her learn? No. I like your suggestion that hey, let's sit down and you can learn. I actually do that in my assignments. I don't sit down with I mean, if they want to come to office hour, I'm talking about it, sure. But generally, when I grade an assignment, I do tell people, this was the mistake, you should have done this. And they can always come and talk more about it. But my comment on this is it might be a little too subjective, because some student might come to you and be like, hey, I put a lot of work, can you bump my grade? But maybe there's a shy student at the end of the class that's not gonna come to you, and then you're not gonna bump their grade. I don't know if that's fair, right? Just because they're shy, right? So I think giving the feedback and giving the grade if you know people learned, I think that's one way to do it. But that's not how I did it, but as long as you make sure the student learned, that I guess that's fair. As if you make sure all the students who learn, who put the effort, actually get this grade, not just the people who pass, right? Because then you don't want to be picking and choosing. Any other thoughts? Okay. So yeah, to summarize the points. So on one hand, you can be lenient, right? But is this fair to the other students who got the right answer? There are people who got the right answer and they'll be like, I didn't have to get the right answer if I was going to get a grade anyway, right? This is not really fair to them. Also, what does it communicate to the students? That your work is not important. You're going to get the grade if you just shed some tears, right? That's also not really nice to the people who worked hard or got the right answer, right? Also, I think there is a value in getting the right answer per se. I think the grade, a big part of the grade is about the effort, but I don't think it's all of it. I still think the right answer has a value because, once you go out to, I don't know, whatever career you choose later, when you share results with people, the correctness of your result has a value, right? It's not just about your effort. I mean, that's how the world works, right? So I think there should always be a weight to the answer. Whether that weight is 50% with effort, we can argue about it, but I don't think it should be zero. Okay, so on one hand you can be lenient, on the other hand you can be like the other side of students, like nope, grades are not changed, don't even come talk about it. I've had professors who literally said that. This is your grade. I don't want to see anyone come talk to me about grades, right? Some people do that, and for me, it's like if a professor is telling me this, I don't know how that makes me excited about their class or learning from them or being curious or just being excited to be in their class if that is their attitude, right? And this stress about if I get the answer wrong, then I'm doomed and I'm not going to get an A. For one reason or another, I made a mistake, right? Does that mean I cannot get an A just because I made a mistake? Okay. This stress, I don't think, helps with the learning environment. So there's being lenient, being don't even try, they both have, I guess, issues, right? So for me, the way I decided to deal with this is in a third way. So I told them, hey, your grade is released, but next assignment is going to be worth 7 points, okay? But since I am the instructor and I have full power on this, a TA might not be able to do this, but since I'm the instructor and I have full power on the class, like, okay, next assignment is 7 points, and I'm going to put extra questions at the end that are worth 4 points. If you really care about your grade and you're not satisfied with the grade of assignment 1, please do more work. You can get those points and you can get through. If like the thing you're concerned about is the grade, you can get more points if you put more work. right? I'm giving you an opportunity again, just like the scenario before this one. For me, it's really about giving the person the opportunity, right? So this, for me, gives the student hope again, right? You know, yeah, you made a mistake, you didn't get the point, but I'm giving you a chance to get the point in a different way. And this is not the only time I get it. Right? I think throughout the class, I get it like, if we have 100 points, I get it like 10 opportunity of 10 extra points. So you could definitely get an A if you really want, right? So in this sense, like you can always use the grade positive. Like, okay, you care about the grade, okay, I'm giving you an opportunity to go get more grades, right? But you have to put the work. I'm not going to give you something. So yeah, this is on one hand, give them the opportunity, on the other hand, it's not unfair to the other students because the other students who got the answer right, they just don't have to do the bonus questions. They don't have to put this in it, right? So I think both sides would find this fair. You know, one side, you can get grade, you can put more work, get the point, learn more. Other side's like, it's not unfair to them, right? And also this has a happy ending because this student eventually also got it. Even though she didn't like the points from percent one, she did make up for it. Any thoughts or questions? Okay. I think I'll go through the other ones quickly. This is not really a scenario, it's more like just me learn things. So to be specific or open-ended, this is something I think this is the one thing probably I think I knew before I started the class, is that undergrads are really good at being lazy. If you give them a question that is not specific enough, they will give you the shortest answer possible. So I remember once I said like, hey, compare method A with method B. So one answer was like, okay, the accuracy for this is 0.9, accuracy for this is 0.8. That was the answer, right? There's no commentary, no like, oh, is this better than this? Maybe I wanted you to compare them in a different way, not the accuracy, right? And I'm not saying this is their fault, this is really my fault. I was not specific enough. But I think that's the lesson, is that the student is not in your brain. They don't know what you're thinking, they don't know what you want, right? So you have to guide them through the answer you want, right? So, because another answer would be like, yeah, method A is more accurate than method B, but we don't have enough samples to a certain statistical significance, but also method B runs faster than A, so it's not really clear that A is better than B, right? It depends on which metric you pick, right? This is a lot more full answer, right, than first one. But it's really not the student's fault, I would say, because they're just doing an assignment, they want to get it over with. So if you really care about their learning experience, you should guide them in the questions, like what do you want them to learn, right? Because if it's just about getting an assignment and getting a grade and not learning, yeah, you can just be as brief as possible, give everyone a point and call it a day, right? But this is not about that, it's about them learning. So if you want them to learn, you have to guide them, especially for undergrads. You have to put like mark points, like, okay, do this, okay, what do you think about this? What if we do this? You have to draw a line of steps rather than just give a generic question answer. Okay. So if you be too open-ended, you will be lazy to the point, but also you don't want to be too specific in a way that limits people's creativities. So sometimes you have to find like your middle ground. It's not easy, and it's different in different fields. So I'm not going to get into the expert here. But always like try to think about the balance between like telling the student what to do, as it's like your hand holding, because you don't want that as well. You want to leave them. So there were lots of times when I had an open-ended question and people answered and I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. That's an interesting observation. So you want to give them a little space to express their thoughts. But if there is something you really, really, really care about, you want them to learn, also you have to spell it out. So maybe a combination of both. other thoughts? Give students options in their assignments, because there can be multiple possible learning outcomes in your class, and maybe certain students care about some of them more than the others. So for example, some people might care about, so I gave, in an assignment, I gave students 2 choices. Like mode 1, you can do coding. Mode 2, you can give me a presentation, a lecture, right? You can choose between those two modes. People who really want to go to academia, they might choose the second mode more. People who care more about industry might choose the first mode. So when possible, give people options to specialize in whatever mode they want in their work, whatever they want to do. Sometimes you want them to learn a very specific thing, and that's fine. You can make everyone do that thing. But sometimes you want people, to give people options, because they're not all going to end up in one place. So it depends on your class and your field, right? Some people will do this, some people will do that. Maybe give people options to. It's like having an elective, right? And this is the last thing I have, emphasizing on the skills you deem important. Sometimes I see a lot of professors just having assignment project, just like submit a paper, submit a document, submit a report, and that's how you get your grade. You can do that, but I don't think that's the best learning, because you have to think about what do you want your students to learn, okay? If, for me, for example, I come from an industry background, and I think to be successful in any field, you have to have good presentation skills. You have to know how to present your results, your work, your thoughts. If your thoughts and results stay on a document, people might read it or not. But if you put your passion in the way you present your result, people are way more likely to be engaged with your findings, right? So if you care, maybe in your field you don't care about that, that's fine. But in my field, I care about that. So if I care about that, then I should give a more higher portion for presentation than usually is done, right? Maybe instead of not giving any point, I want to give 20% or 10%. I don't know. Just bump it up, because I want to communicate to the student that, hey, I care about this. Put more effort into it. I care about how you present your work. So you communicate that through the grade, right? If you care about dialogue and participation, then you should have a grade for canvas discussion and class participation. If you care about writing, tell your students to write a blog post and grade it, right? If you care about a certain skill, then make an assignment about it and grade it, right? Don't assume that people will pick it up later. They might, but if you care about it, if you care about teaching it, and if you care about them learning it, and if you care about giving feedback about it, then make it part of the syllabus, part of the grading scheme. So that's all I want to share, and I thought some of Professor would be here, so I wanted to give a special thanks to Professor Mursli. I think a lot of these, while I was teaching that class, I was in his class, the pedagogy, and I always brought whatever problems I had in my class into his class. It's like, hey, let's discuss this, and he was always so gracious to let us talk about it. So I wanted to give him a special thanks in this slide, because a lot of these problems we actually try to discuss in this slide. So I just want to thank him, and I want to thank you.